credible perimeter turns space into a boundary that detects, delays, and directs. Fences and walls are not decoration. Their height, footing, and anti-climb features translate into real delay times that buy response minutes. Lighting should follow design, not guesswork. Uniform illumination at approaches and corners reduces glare and shadows, while motion-activated boosts draw human attention to where change is happening. Cameras placed at choke points, not just wide vistas, capture identifiable faces and plates, and analytics tuned for loitering or line crossing create alerts that humans can verify. The measure of success is concrete. A detection is generated, a responsible team receives it, a responder arrives with context, and a record remains for review. That is how deterrence becomes a system rather than scenery.
Access points are where policy meets practice, and the design must prevent polite subversion. Badges, backed by identity proofing and life cycle governance, establish who may enter. Biometrics add assurance where risk justifies it, and man-traps remove the assumption that one badge equals one body. Anti-tailgating procedures begin with culture, people who are comfortable letting a door close and asking to see a badge, and continue with sensors that count bodies and interlocks that refuse to move when counts mismatch. The test is simple. Can two people walk in on one token during business hours, and what signal is raised if they try? When boundaries are enforced without drama and exceptions are both rare and recorded, the entry system is working. Visitor management is a chain of custody for people, and it begins before the first handshake. Pre-registration collects identity details, purpose, host, and time window. Arrival verification matches government identification to the pre-registration record. Temporary badges clearly mark roles and zone permissions, and an escort maintains line of sight in controlled areas. Every step leaves an audit trail: who requested, who approved, when entry occurred, where movement was allowed, when the badge was returned, and whether any areas were denied or alarms triggered. The last step, badge return, is not ceremonial. It prevents residual access and stops lost temporary credentials from becoming permanent risks. In a mature program, the logs are as clean as the lobby. Inside the building, zoning converts floor plans into risk maps. Public, controlled, and restricted areas are labeled in both documents and reality, with different door hardware, reader policies, and alarm responses. Leased access applies physically. A finance analyst can reach work areas and collaboration rooms, not the data closet. A network engineer reaches the closet, not payroll files. Every access event is logged with identity, door, and timestamp, and periodic reviews remove stale rights when roles change or projects end. When an auditor can pull a list of restricted area access grants, match them to current duties, and see removals on schedule, the building mirrors the principle you already live by in accounts and groups. Equipment protection accepts a hard truth. If someone can open, remove, or swap a component unnoticed, they can often bypass software controls. Racks should be locked with unique keys or managed cores, not shared drawers. Bezel locks and tamper-evident seals tell you if someone tried a quiet approach, and cable locks or secure trays keep portable systems where they belong. Serial numbers, photographed placements, and inventory tags allow you to validate that what is present is what should be present. Credible evidence looks like this: a log of rack access with names and reasons, a quarterly inspection report that sampled seals and locks, and a variance ticket when anything was out of spec. Without that trail, secure is a wish, not a state. Shipping and receiving sit at the boundary where innocuous parcels can smuggle risk. Rogue hardware ingress is prevented by pre-authorization. Only purchases with known order numbers and expected serial ranges are accepted to inventory, and boxes that don't match are quarantined for inspection. Media and devices leaving the site follow a documented process. Data-bearing items require wipe certificates or destruction orders, packing lists name everything inside, and courier handoffs are recorded with times and signatures. Outbound controls catch quiet exfiltration attempts, drives and desk mail, laptops and returns, samples headed to unknown addresses, because the dock follows the same chain of custody rigor as a lab. When the loading bay acts like a control point, not a convenience, the whole facility gets safer. Environmental protections remind us that uptime depends on physics. Reliable power begins with conditioned feeds, uninterruptible power supplies sized for graceful transitions, and tested generators with fuel contracts that won't fail in a regional event. Heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, spelled HVAC on first mention, keeps equipment within operating range and alarms when it trends toward danger. Water sensors catch the drip before it becomes a flood. And fire suppression uses appropriate agents that save people first and avoid destroying equipment unnecessarily. Continuity thinking ties it together. Maintenance windows have backout plans. Spare parts are stocked for known wear items. And contractors are vetted and escorted during critical work. If the logs show tests, the dashboards show thresholds, and the playbooks show rehearsals, you are doing it right. Media handling is where confidentiality and integrity live or die in the physical world. Locked storage prevents casual access to drives and tapes. Chain of custody forms travel with items and capture who had them, when, where they moved, and why. And certified destruction renders retired media beyond practical recovery with third-party attestations tied to specific serials. Temporary loans are time-boxed and locked. Returns are checked in with the same ceremony as issuance. And off-site storage partners are audited for their own physical controls and transport practices. The point is not paranoia, it is traceability. When the artifact list and the custody log reconcile cleanly, you can answer hard questions without guesswork. Incidents at the door require muscle memory, not improvisation. Piggybacking gets a polite stop phrase, a badge request, and, if needed, an escort to the lobby rather than a hallway confrontation. Lost badges trigger immediate revocation in the system and a short incident record noting last known use. Forced entry drills exercise cameras, alarms, and human response on a schedule that does not leak. Escalation paths are written, posted for staff, and tested so that reception, facilities, and security operations know who calls whom and in what order. After-action notes capture what went well and what lagged, then feed back into training and configuration. Calm repetition builds a culture where unusual events feel familiar. Closed-circuit television, spelled CCTV on first mention, only earns its keep when placement, retention, and privacy are all respected. Coverage focuses on entrances, exits, critical rooms, and transition spaces where identities can be captured lawfully with attention to lighting angles and blind spots. Retention aligns with investigative needs and legal guidance, long enough to support delayed discovery, not so long that privacy or storage costs run wild. Access to footage is logged and limited. Export for investigations follows a request and approval trail, and signage informs occupants and visitors where monitoring occurs. Cameras are a control and a responsibility, and programs that treat them as both avoid the predictable missteps. Common gaps are painfully ordinary and therefore fixable. Propped doors defeat interlocks and alarms. Shared badges erode accountability. Camera blind spots become habitual meeting points for rule bending. The fixes are procedural and physical. Door alarms with short delays and required clear reasons. Disciplinary follow-through for badge sharing coupled with faster badgery issues when people forget. And periodic camera walks with someone who actually reviews footage to validate that angles and clarity match intent. Small investments, door closers tuned correctly, reader mounts secured, signage refreshed, yield real risk reduction. The goal is not perfection, it is continuous removal of easy wins for adversaries and accidental insiders. To make the abstractions tangible, consider a short walkthrough from parking lot to server room. A car enters through a gated lot captured on plate-reading cameras. The pedestrian gate requires a badge and rejects expired credentials. Exterior lighting keeps faces visible as a person approaches the lobby. At reception, pre-registered visitors present identification, receive temporary badges with limited zone access, and meet their escorts. Employee badges open turnstiles. An anti-tailgating sensor chirps when two bodies try to pass on one swipe. Elevator controls restrict floors. Outside the server room, a man trap authenticates identity and prevents piggybacking. Inside, locked racks, labeled cabling, and sealed panels show a tidy, tamper-evident environment. Environmental dashboards report stable power and temperature. Cameras at the door record entries with timestamps. Every step leaves a trail, and every trail supports an investigation if one is needed. We close with a single, concrete action that turns principles into practice. Build one facilities walkthrough checklist you will actually use this week, scoped to a single site or floor. Include 5 anchors: perimeter condition and lighting at night, access point behavior during a busy entry,
visitor process from greeting to badge return, restricted area door and rack integrity, and a spot check of CCTV angles against expected faces and lines of travel. Add space to note one gap, one owner, and one due date for remediation, then schedule a 15-minute readout to whoever runs the building. When physical safeguards are inspected with the same rigor as firewalls and backups, your cyber program stops at the real edge and holds. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.